Well, welcome back everyone. Today I want to discuss a little something that's been kind of gnawing at me for a while. And that is turbocharger failure. Now I understand that you get a couple 100,000 miles on a vehicle, and turbocharger might fail. But this vehicle here is a 2013 Lincoln MKT 3.5 liter twin turbo, 20,000 miles, and 19 months ago, both of these were replaced. And as you can see, they're out again, and they're out because they have failed. Here's my turbine wheel for this one. It is missing, or broken. This one here has become quite loose. There's not an oil filter over that I want to show you later. And my compressor wheel is pretty much destroyed because the nut has come off. Now, turbochargers have been around for a long time, and like any piece of equipment, they can fail. But the repeat failure of these things is just out of hand. And after several replacements and working on these things, and actually tearing them apart and looking into why sorry, I'm not getting the data on this one. It looks very, very new. There seems to be a common connection as to why these fail. And in this case, we're going to take this apart together. We're going to see this together. I believe these are oil starved. And I say that because I looked at the repair order from 18 months ago, whatever it was, 20 months, for these. And it showed a list of parts that were put on with these. But the one thing that was not on the list, these oil supply lines. Now in these oil supply lines, there's a filter. And I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts that the filter is plugged. I'm going to go ahead and take this line off. I'm going to show you where the filter is. But we're not going to take it off from that one. Give me 1 second and I will have it. Take that bolt off. I'm going to take this one off as well. I'm going to look at both of these here. Need an extension for that one. That's funny. That should not be in right. I'll have to work on that one. It's a mess. But we're going to look at this filter here together. The filter is inside this block. We pull this banjo bolt out. It's going to spill some oil. Then take off this seal. And then the filter only comes out from one end. There it is. Push it out. Oh, look at that. I can barely get, oh look, now all the oil's coming out. Okay. Bring you in close here. See if I can see this on camera. Okay. There's a filter I've taken out. And it was kind of difficult to get it out. Oops, there we are. And voila. That filter is plugged. I'll get a flashlight and shine it through here and show you why or what is in this thing. Set it down right here, get a clean rag, and a light. We're going to shine it through it. So here it is. See if that'll focus. There we go. But you come in the backside. Nothing. Barely any oil getting through that thing. So, let me make an adjustment here so if I can see this a little better. I want to make sure I'm getting all of this. My lighting is not the best in this garage. You can see all the debris in here. A little clean on that side. Probably knocked it off, but there's all kinds of crud in this thing. Whoa, sorry guys. Just punted you in the next week. Sorry. Put this one here down. I'm gonna take this other one apart. I did not realize there was that much oil still in the line, so yeah. Well plugged. Be right back. This bolt here was a little tight. Oil spills out of this one when I take it apart. Probably not much because this one I had upside down and it spilled all over the floor. So there's a bolt. Seal. See, the filter's stuck in here. It should fall out. It's not meant to be captive. But yeah, this one here. I'm gonna set it right here. And grab a rag and kind of give it a wipe down. And a flashlight. And that's what it looks like. Absolute crap. Very little oil flow getting through this. So, why am I telling you this? What's the point? Where's the debris coming apart from? Lack of oil changes? Engine coming apart? No, that's not it. Although, doing more oil changes would probably help. However, this engine was designed to go through extended drain intervals. So, why would you have to change the oil every 4, 5, 6,000 miles, whatever it was? Well, the simple answer, I'm going to set this aside, make sure I don't pick things up. The simple answer is, it's not a problem with the oil, it's a problem with the filter. And together we're going to take a look at those two filters, and this is what I have been seeing time and time again on these things. I've had debates and arguments with the local municipality on their police cars. Like, oh, we change oil often. Well, how often do you change it? I think it came down to like every 4 months. Okay. How many miles is that? Well, I don't know, they'd say. Or how many hours? Well, once again, you get the same answer. I don't know. Well, they don't monitor by hours. And I did a little math and I realized that, the amount of hours on the engine equated to somewhere to about 12 to 15,000 miles between oil changes, which in itself might have been okay. But what I had discovered was the filters. Yes, the almighty filters. So, a lot of engineering goes into this stuff. And when the manufacturer, in this case Ford, comes back and says, yeah, our car can go 10,000 miles between oil changes, and it can, if you use what they used, and that's the problem. This is an FL 400, because I did not have an FL 500. The 400 was used between 2008 and 2009, and then switched to a FL 500, which just had a larger hole here, as you can see with this. But the biggest difference is between the factory filter and a lot of the quick lube aftermarket filters. Obviously you can see the difference in size, but even the ones that had the larger cylinders like this, when I would take them apart, what I would find was the paper itself, the filter itself was smaller. So I would get one of identical size from a lube shop, and the paper was small. And this one might be difficult to get out of here because I had to crush it to get it apart. There we go. Ta-da! So even the ones that had the larger bodies like this, inside was a paper element of that dimension. Absolute joke. So, okay, well this one's completely different. See, the Ford filter has a bottom to it. This one does not. This is just absolutely cheese dick, cheapo stuff here. So I'm gonna have to block this because I'm gonna show you one thing. And this is what I showed the police department when they said, we change our oil a lot. I said, yeah, your oil filter's plugged. And I did exactly this. I took the filter and I poured mineral spirits in it, which we all can agree is thinner than oil, and it barely flowed through like that. This thing's still full. I don't know if you can see the top of it, but that's it. This thing is full of mineral spirits, and that's all it is pulling through by gravity. Now, I will do this one. I'm just gonna pour the rest of this crud in here. There's your difference. That filter is completely plugged. This one here came off of a used, well, this is a used filter. Came off a customer car. Probably had about 10,000 miles in between services because that's about the average the oil life miner will come on. Okay, this one is empty now. This one still has spirits in it. There we go, flowing through. So I'm gonna clean this filter out in this pan, and we're gonna look at what's in here. You know what? I'm gonna do this way. I don't know if I can, but I'm gonna try. It's actually hard to clean these things. Because this stuff does not want to come out of here. But what I am going to find, and I've done this before, is a fine granule of just basically burnt oil. Now you say, well, you know, the oil just was cheap, wasn't good enough oil. It is good enough. When these things are engineered, there is an anticipated amount of charring of the oil from the turbo because it's so hot. You shut the vehicle down after a long run, and that oil sits and stews in that turbocharger, and it burns up, it turns to crispiness and whatever, but it's small. When you start it up, fresh oil blows through it, blows that down into the pan, and the oil filter cleans it up. That's why a good filter is so important. This one, it may have been clearing it up very easily, very quickly, but it could not withstand the extended drain intervals of 10,000 miles because it just doesn't have enough filter to it. I mean, even the pleats, you know, you look at them, the pleats are even further apart. So that's even less surface area. So I'm gonna cut this thing open. I'm gonna try to cut all paper out of it and rinse the paper in that spirits there. And while I talk, I'm gonna let it settle to the bottom. We're gonna see what's in the bottom of this thing. And I've already got a pretty good idea what I'm going to find because it's not the first time I've done this. I've had to do this, oh shit, there's a chunk, whatever that is. I've had to do this with Ford extended warranty, ESP, because they always like to know what the causal failure was. What was the initial point of failure that caused it all to fall apart and die? The oil filter. Oil filters aren't covered, okay? So now what? Oh, we're gonna cover it anyways because it's a police car. So be it. Their money, no argument. But anyways, Ford requires me to tear them down to the causal failure. What was the one simple component or the one component that failed that wiped everything else out? And that answer is the filter. Now, so you asked me, okay, great. It's the filter. So what? Well, in these filters, there is a bypass that if they do get plugged, the pressure regulator, find it, it's usually just a spring in the bottom. What do I do with it? This little guy, right here. Pressure spring. So if the pressure gets too high within the filter, make sure you get that. Because the filter gets plugged, it will bypass. That way you don't starve your engine of oil. Granted, you're blowing all the crud through the motor too, but if it were a non-turbo engine, it would not be an issue because you wouldn't have a little filter screen like we have here that would tend to get plugged. If it were just your basic naturally aspirated engine, no problems. Everything's fine. Somewhere around here, I've got new filters. They might be in the house. But I've already got new parts for this thing, and turbo's on the way. Some of them are on back order, so it takes a little time to get them. So I'm doing my best to quickly wash out this filter so we can get a look at it so this video doesn't become too long-winded. Now, this is my opinion on the matter. It's my findings, what I found. You're gonna ask 100 different mechanics and you might get 100 different answers. So be it. I'm not here to debate with them as to what they find or how they diagnose their vehicles. I'm just simply here to show you what I have found, and hopefully this will help someone along the way. Now I'm going to grab this filter here. I'm going to clean this filter out, show you what it's supposed to look like. Nope, I can't clean this. I'm going to leave this alone. I wish I would have brought those new ones out. But when I edit the video, I will show new versus old, so you get an idea as to what it looks like. So, clean this out. Hoping to get rid of this mineral spirits. See what is actually in the bottom of this bucket. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let it sit. We're going to talk about these turbos just a little bit. So, without getting too deeply involved with the reasons it's failed in this particular car, we're going to talk about these things in general, these turbochargers. I have had time and time again working with these. My coworker, another technician, heavy engine mechanic, he would get a situation where the turbos would fail, and his position was, it needs a motor. Engine's junk, it needs a motor. That's why the turbos are failing, because the engine is coming apart and it's plugging the oil feed and destroying the turbos. That was his take. And that's a $12,000 repair if you buy into that. And of course it's going to fix it because you've slapped 2 new turbos on it. You've put on you put in a new engine, so you've pretty much just unloaded the parts cannon on it and you've replaced everything. When in fact, the rest of the engine is fine when this happens. As long as you don't consume all of your oil in the process of the turbo failure. So we got oil in it, everything's fine. In this case, this one here has all kinds of timing faults in it. And when I checked it, very, very low on oil. So I suspect that the cam phasers are empty and you can't get enough oil to them. So it has been oil starved. But before I proceed with this repair, I've got to tear this thing apart to make sure there's no critical engine damage. This car's got 120,000 miles on it. She just put a few $1,000s in it less than 2 years ago and less than 20,000 miles to have these replaced. Wasn't very happy with the work that I saw because there were a lot of loose fasteners, far more than there should have been. Even the charge air cooler tubes that hook up to these things, the inlet and the outlet. The outlets were fairly tight, the inlets were just shoved over the inlets of the turbo. I pulled those off by hand, didn't even have to take the clamps off. So it kind of shows you the attention to detail that was missed. And you can't do that with these things. You have to be on your game. You have to be aware of what causes the failure, what caused that happening, the lack of oil, crappy filters, or less than adequate, I should say. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But yeah, that's pretty much the root cause of these failures. Because the oil, although the oil was dirty and black, it was still a liquid flowing lubricant. The inside of the engine, when I looked in under the valve cover with an endoscope, no sludge. So the argument of the oil was sludged or the oil went bad, that doesn't hold water. The simple fact is the filter is the biggest culprit and cause of repeat failures. So I think I've talked your ears off long enough. I'm going to pour some of this liquid out, and hopefully I can keep whatever debris is in the bottom of this bucket in here and not pour it off. Because if I were a coal miner, I'd have a better chance at it. But mind you, I didn't really rinse this filter out very good. In the past, I've taken a nylon brush and actually just rubbed lightly over the filter paper to knock any debris loose that was still on. And it usually amounts to about a full teaspoon of debris. This very, very fine powder, which is just dried up, caked up, crusty oil. So, thank you for bearing with me here. Let me get this poured out. Oh shit. Alright, a lot more in here than I was expecting. Right. There it is. And that's just a little bit. I probably could have got more if I spent time cleaning the paper, but this is a very, very fine, that's actually a piece of filter medium. But it is a fine grit that is in here. And that's what the filter, whoops, getting out of camera here. And that's what the filter was supposed to, well, there's a lot on this actually, clean out. And like I said, a big enough filter is more than equal to the task of the oil change intervals. These smaller filters that are made to a price point, so the quick lube shops can increase their profit by only spending $2 on a filter, if they spend that much, is a root source of these continual turbo failures. I think it was August, similar situation. In fact, the picture I'm going to share with the two oil filters for the oil feed lines are from that car. 14 Explorer Sport, twin turbo engine. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, you know, I've known him for a while, and we'll call him Jim. I said, Jim, how often do you change your oil? He says, every 10,000 miles. And I just kind of shake my head. I said, why do you go every 10,000? He goes, well, the oil indicator on my dashboard comes on. I'm like, well, Jim, I said, that would be fine, but the problem is you're pulling into your quick lube shop who's throwing the cheapest filter they can get their hands on onto that vehicle. And this one happens to be a Valvoline filter, so it's probably a instant oil change place, Valvoline. And that's what's causing it. And I showed him exactly what I'm showing you now. And he kind of shook his head. This is what he suggested. So you got two choices. You either change your oil every 5,000 miles, or you make sure you get a Ford FL500 filter put on it. Well, how do I do that? Well, you take it to a Ford dealer. It's going to cost you about $75 now for an oil change and tire rotation. And he seemed to accept that. One last story before I sign off here. Similar situation with a 2013 Flex twin turbo, 3.5 liter. I bought from a dealership that I may or may not have worked for, and they believed it to have a bad motor, smoked like a freight train, had a bad turbo for sure. I started it, I listened to it, I didn't find any unusual noises with the motor. So for the cost of for a used turbo, $400, I put it in. I bought the car for $1,000. Thing is beautiful, fully loaded, not another option to be had. My wife is still driving it today, 2 years later. It now has 228,000 miles on it. But when I changed out that turbocharger, I also took the turbocharger that had not failed. I had taken the oil feed line off, and it was fairly well plugged. And I changed that filter, put it all back together. So it still has the original turbocharger in for bank 1. Bank 2 was the one that had failed. That would be the one towards the radiator. So these turbos can go a long time. I hope this video has value. And if you have your opinion on the matter, feel free to share it. I'm going to pull you in closely here after I get these gloves off. I'm going to show you these turbos, because they are interesting. All right, here we go. We're off. This was the one. Oh, I need some light for sure. This guy here, as you can see, the compressor or the turbine wheel, which is right here, should be down here. I found that in a catalytic converter, and my big hand is in the way, isn't it? How the hell did it even get out of there? But anyways, this one here was pumping oil right into the exhaust system. That is the oil exit, which the bolts were loose. This one here this one appears to be an aftermarket turbo. I don't know this company. First, that's what caught my attention earlier. But for those of you who know this turbo, you know what's wrong with it already. You see something missing. Oh shit, let me get in frame. There we go, there it is. Sorry people, it's like you're drunk on New Year's Eve. I'll put them together. Well, you can see the compressor's destroyed. So look, there's a nut missing. I think that nut is on my toolbox. Let me go here in my toolbox. No, it is not. Oh, there it is. I took off the CAC pipe, charged air cooler, and I heard something fall. I was hoping that I did not have 2 destroyed turbos in this thing, but I do. So anyways, once again, oh wait a minute, they're both the same company. I just noticed this. So, yeah, all right. They seem to be pretty good quality turbo. I thought they were original Ford ones, but they're not. So, all right, enough of my long-winded video. Just one last point of fact. If you buy the Ford turbochargers, you now get these lines included in the box. And the price has gone down. They used to be about $900 a copy retail. Now they're just over $700 and they come with the lines. Clearly Ford was getting a little fed up with repeat failures. So they give you the lines now. So if you have any input, I'd love to read it. don't be afraid to tell me what you think. But that's it for now, everybody. And this is my project. Tomorrow I will pull the valve covers and front cover off the motor to at least put a timing chain tensioner and a water pump in it. So this lady shouldn't have any more problems. But that's all for now. Have a good day.